What's up, everybody? Welcome to Leaders of Lifestyle, a podcast all about real estate, sports, and entertainment. Take a deep dive with me into the world of high-end lifestyle and get exposed to the different leaders behind the scenes of it all. So let's get right into it. Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders of Lifestyle podcast, special edition, end of the year edition, 2021 record-breaking sales, Greenwich, state of Connecticut. With me to recap this amazing 2021 year is none other than Mark Pruner. Mark, how are you?
Good. I am in a celebratory mood. Things are going great. It really was an amazing year in Greenwich. By the time you hear this, we will have had over 1,000 sales in Greenwich, Connecticut. Our highest sales before that was 864, which was last year. So it really is just an incredible year. No one ever thought that we would break 1,000 sales on the Greenwich MLS. We will do it. The question is, by how much?
Yes, absolutely. It has been insane. It's been an insane year. I've talked to a lot of amazing brokers and people outside of real estate. The number one topic for everybody is how's the market and how real estate is. So we are a trending hot topic, have been for a couple of years now, but really peaking now. So who knows what 2022 brings us, but to recap it, like I said, I could not have provided you guys with a better person than the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Pruner. So Mark, we have a ton of awards to give out. We have a ton of people and properties to highlight. So let's kind of jump right into this. So a review of the 2021 records. Like I said, we're going to total sales, highest and lowest sales price, biggest and smallest houses, fastest and slowest sales, and most over and list and inventory. So like you said, Mark, I think total sales is 988. Let's talk a little bit about first half or second half and that whole process.
Yeah, so what happened first half of the year, we got good inventory. A lot of people were upsizing because of work from home. The main story has been COVID in a lot of the national press, but it really is this whole work from home, doing what we're doing, sitting here on a Zoom call, talking as if we're next to each other, and so people are upsizing. They're buying bigger houses with more room because they now need 2 offices. Their kids want to get out of their room for homeschooling, so they need a homeschooling area. And so that's really drove the market. And what it really did was it gave us inventory, right, which we saw all the way through July, which was an all-time record for any one month in Greenwich with 143 sales. The big problem was that after that, we started running out of listings. Right. Our listings never got above 340 when normally we're looking at about 700 listings. Right. And at this moment, they are at an all-time record low by over 100 listings that were missing. Right. So, we had 514 sales in the first half. In the second half, we had 374. We probably could have beat the first half if we'd had more inventory. And by the way, that's through the end of November. Right. I mean, this is I think the majority of brokers that I'm talking to, we have laundry lists of people that are just waiting to come in. What do you have? What's new construction? What's down the road? Anything off market? Off market is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So who that actually has an inventory or understanding of off market properties is really important. Let's talk the month of December 2021 that we're in now. What do we have going on month to date? Well, so far we have 59 sales. I'm estimating we're going to end up at about 70 or 80 sales. Wow. We need another 12 sales to break 1,000. But we've got 109 contracts waiting to close. Wow. And we always see a lot of activity in the last 10 days of the month. So yeah, we're I'm guessing around 1,010 For the numerologist, 1,011 sales would be a lot of ones. So I don't know if that's if that makes people excited. But yeah, it's going to be it is a very good year. We broke the record on October 23rd for last year's sales, and so every sale subsequent is setting a new all-time record.
So we're at all-time highs. This is it. This is the big time. This is record-breaking, all-time high amount of sales in the history of the town of Greenwich.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's and the other thing that's really impressive is how many of those sales are high-end sales. Our high-end sales are up 268% over 2019. They're up 109% over 2020. So what we're seeing is lots of people that are looking to move to Greenwich and Connecticut, and particularly in that $5 to $10 million segment.
Right. That's the big boom area is that price point. And I think that you're right, that everybody's kind of coming in there feeling that's a price point that they can feel comfortable financially in for whatever their reason is. But also that seemed to be for a long time the price point that people got the McMansions, they got the locations in that South Parkway. That was kind of that area, which is happening is it's kind of squeezing into a different price point now. I think the properties that people want, if they can find them, are becoming either not the location, over 10,000 square feet, or outside of their price point that they want, or to be built. So it's
so we've got a lot of to be built market. We've got the upsizing, and I think part of it is that the reason we're doing well from 5 to 10 is we just had more shadow inventory. We had more people that were willing to put their houses on the market compared to the demand for it. The demand, as I said, is up over 250% in the last 2 years.
Right.
But Greenwich is a home to a lot of very high-end houses.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a stellar year when you just look at the overall numbers.
Yes, absolutely. I think people want to know what are the biggest, highest sale prices in Greenwich. So I think that we should jump into that for people, right? Because they
sure.
They
so
the
biggest sale.
Wait, hold on, Mark. Okay, so this. Let's do this. This is the Greenwich top 5 sales, and don't
exactly.
Let's go this way. Don't do the top one first. Do the other way around.
Okay, so let's start at number 5, which was a Compass sale by Bill Andrus for $15 million at 78 Mayo Avenue. Okay. Second highest sale ever in Bellhaven. As you'll see, direct waterfront was a big deal for 3 out of 5 of these sales. The other 2 were in backcountry, and those are our 2 areas for big high-priced houses.
Gotcha. Okay, so number 1 being the highest of the top 5.
This is number 4. Is 23 Smith Road.
Number 4
at $27,750,000. That's if you look on the Greenwich MLS. However, if you include the private sales, Shelley Treader Lynch, also of Compass, had a sale for $19,250,000, which was bought only a few years ago for $13,800. So that pushes Bill down to 5. Shelley comes in at 4, and then our number 3 sale is another Bellhaven Peninsula sale at $27,750,000, direct waterfront, and followed up by Tommy Hilfiger's house at number 2 at $45 million. That house was on for a very short period of time. It epitomizes the interest of people at the high end looking for unique houses. And Mr. Hilfiger, who I used to see walk by my listing off of John Street,
Yeah.
He was a very nice guy. I would wave at him and would see him usually when I was having realtor open houses. Anyway, he got $45 million for his house.
For him.
He and his wives, his ex-wives, have had probably 4 of the top 20 sales in the last 10 years. They've done a marvelous job of finding really nice houses, making them even nicer, and selling them at a very good price. The number one sale for the year is 100 Field Point Circle at $50 million. Ooh. Field Point Circle is the private association within the private association.
Yep.
Bellhaven has a security guard, but Field Point Circle has a security house with a gate. No one gets in. You have to sign in, show your ID before you get in. It is the creme de la creme of Greenwich addresses. And it's got, when you look at the overall listings, or not listings, but assessments, that's where probably half of our really high-end listings, Byram Shore Road being the other one, and then a few in backcountry. But yeah, 100 Field Point Circle, 3 acres, facing east. You get to watch the sunrise over Greenwich Cove. Just a beautiful house that was fixed up, and it deserved the $50 million price. It was a unique property for the entire east coast of the U.S.
Yeah, I think there's one thing very clear about this top 5 list that we just did. When you start to ask about Greenwich and understand Greenwich and property values and what's the most expensive part, this is really highlighting during a super hot real estate market that there is definitely something special about Bellhaven. I have gotten to spend a lot of time there, view a lot of property there, work with the Bellhaven Club and the Lobsters, the swim team there. And I would say that having spent that kind of time, there's a reason why Bellhaven is commanding these price points at these properties. The exclusivity is the most exclusive of the exclusive. There's nothing to take away from Backcountry. There's nothing to take away from Conyers Farms. There's nothing to take away from different parts of the
we'll
town.
get to a couple here in a second too, where I might differ a little with you.
Okay,
but we're talking minute nuances.
I personally, you're probably going to make a great point, and it'll sway my opinion on it. I just think there's something about Bellhaven. If people don't even know. There's a lot of times people have no idea what Bellhaven is. They don't
and one of the great things about Bellhaven is you were with the swim team. I've got several friends down there. I play paddle and paddle tennis, and it's a good group of folks. A lot of people seem to think that these are, very well-to-do, exclusive people who kind of pull up the ladder. And it's they like their security. At the same time, they're very welcoming. The people are all very nice.
Yep.
I can't say that in all the time that I've been there, that I've ever met anybody that I would consider conceited or arrogant. It's a regular group of people who luckily have been successful in life.
Yep, absolutely. It was the same. I mean, the time I spent in Bellhaven, obviously, like I said, getting to know a lot of the families, because working with real estate there and also being part of the clubs and everything they have there, you get to meet the families intimately. You get to work with the kids and the grandkids and the people that come there. And everybody was absolutely top-notch, great people. I have nothing but the best to say about that area. And you're right. But I just think there's something about the water and the exclusivity there that definitely lifts it up. But we'll talk more.
You've got the water, and you've also got the club, which brings everybody together to meet as neighbors. So as a community, I would say Bellhaven is the one where the neighbors know each other the best.
Yes, I would agree.
At our high end,
for sure. So let's. So that was our top 5. We talked about the highest private sale, right? That was the Lower Cross Road. That was the Shelley's property. $19,250,000 was the highest private sale. I personally think that will go up. I think there's a chance that 2022 that number gets broke. Is that the highest private sale ever in Greenwich, or not even close?
That's a question. I have no idea what the answer is to it, because by definition, the private sales are really hard to track.
Right.
I will say that 15 to 20% of the high-end sales are private sales.
Okay.
So that when you see these numbers, 1,000 sales in Greenwich, a $50 million publicly listed sale, there are other sales out there above 10 million and particularly above 5 million that are private. Those folks at that level much prefer, if they can, to sell their property privately. And it's frequently one LLC to another, or actually the preferred ownership method now is a trust.
Yep.
The two biggest private landowners in Greenwich are two attorneys in town who are listed as trustees on these properties.
Okay.
So not that they spend much time at them. I'm sure they get along well with their clients.
Sure.
But they're being held in trust for the actual beneficial owners of the property under the trust structure.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about the Gold Coast and the Connecticut towns. I'm going to read off the town, and then why don't you tell me the address and the sale price? That sound all right?
Okay, I'm going to put my glasses on for that.
Okay.
But
I got them on the whole time, so I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
All right. Gold Coast and Connecticut towns, highest sale price. Let's start with Fairfield.
Fairfield, a town that some people don't necessarily include in the Gold Coast, but this sale definitely says that they are part of the Gold Coast. 1093 Pequot Avenue went for $10,900,000. It was 1 acre, obviously directly on the water, with a 9,000 square foot house that was only on the market for a little over 2 months, and it was built in 2020. So new construction on the water, that in a beautiful piece of property, will do very well. The one thing I would point out is that sale's just under $11 million. It wouldn't have made the top 5 in Greenwich, which just shows you kind of how unique Greenwich is. But we're about to get to the lowest sales, so Greenwich is not only high-end sales, but yeah. So that's the highest sale outside of Greenwich in the Gold Coast, in Fairfield County, and statewide.
Okay. Let's go with the town of Westport.
Westport, 10 Gray Lane at an even $10 million, 2.3 acres. Once again, house was built in 2018. It was on for less than a month. High-end waterfront property. They're not making more of it.
Right.
There is a little bit of construction, but usually it's not spec. But yeah, if you've got something new on the water, you've got a real good chance of selling it for a nice price.
Yeah, there's a lot of property right now going up in the water area in Greenwich too, Shore Road, different things like that. But those developers, people are working on stuff, are doing very, very well. Picked good property, good time, do great work. People pay premium for that. Darien.
Yep.
Darien.
Okay, that was 16 Raiders Lane at $8.275 million, 1.6 acres, only 6,300 square feet. It was on for 45 days and built in 2018. So once again, new property on the water, doesn't have to be huge, and you get a nice price. Darien is a smaller market, so when you see something, if you want Darien, you better move quickly.
Yep. That's an interesting point there. These top 3, Fairfield, Westport, Darien, all properties built 2018 or newer, on the market for just under 2 months, and everything under 10,000 square feet. And everything really around 2 acres and under. And that was your top 3 sales in the Gold Coast outside of Greenwich. So there's a little bit of a trend there. We go to New Canaan now, and we'll go to the opposite of that. So what do we got in New Canaan?
So as we know, New Canaan does not have a waterfront.
Nope.
So therefore, you don't see the big premium in sales. However, they have a lot of really nice houses on nice pieces of land.
Right.
So there, the number one sale in New Canaan was 358 Luke's Road, went for $7.85 million on 4.8 acres, but what you do get on 4.8 acres is a lot of house,
Yep.
and that's what gets you the big prices away from the waterfront. So you're looking at 16,000 square feet. Now that house, and it also goes to show you it doesn't have to be brand new. That house was built in 1941. It did take 7 months to sell, but I would wait 7 months for $7.85 million.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the outlier right now, which is that's the 16,000 square foot, the big property, 214 days, which normally would not be a big deal at all. But then we see
No, I mean,
times now,
yeah.
This would be years in past markets.
Yes, in fact, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, a lot of our houses, Greenwich, everywhere else at the high end, were you were looking at 9 months was a quick sale. A year or 2 years was not unusual, and we're going to see some that have been on for several years.
Beautiful. Okay, let's talk Stanford here coming in next. So what do we got?
So Stanford is our only city. This keeps up. People are going to start including it in the Gold Coast, which traditionally was Greenwich, Darien, Westport, and New Canaan, and some people included Fairfield, as I mentioned. But Stanford at 123 Saddle Rock Road came in at $7.5 million, 1.67 acres, only 5,400 square feet, built in 1914, on for 37 days. So once again, great piece of waterfront property. People will pay a premium for it, and if you've got a classic house that's been updated, people are looking now and are willing to pay a good price.
So it is the oldest, over 100 years old. It is the smallest, almost 5,000 square feet, and only on an acre and a half. But again, premiums for premium things, either new builds, definitely anything on the water. And this is a trend that's happening all across America. It was always happening, but now we're seeing it hit big time in Connecticut. And yeah, I would love to see Stanford make that Gold Coast list. I personally think Fairfield really should be on the Gold Coast list. I mean, it really should be. But Stanford getting on that,
a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who can make an argument of the Norwalk and Rowayton and things like that.
And that's exactly the case. Many of these areas are actually fairly small areas.
Yep.
For our very high end in Greenwich, you're looking at a strip along the water, and you're looking at backcountry, and not even all of backcountry.
Right.
There are certain areas in backcountry that have high end houses, and then there are other areas like Banksville that have much more modest houses.
Correct. Absolutely. Let's round this off. The last, but certainly not the least. They made the list here. This is great. This is a big one, a big outlier. So what do we got in
This is the biggest sale outside of Fairfield County in Connecticut at $7.4 million, 130 Taconic Road in Salisbury. Was on for 122 days. The house was 13,000 square feet, but it was on 239 acres.
There you go.
That's one of the nice things when you get up in some of our more rural areas is we're not talking land. We're talking land. I mean, like really big tracts of land. Yeah. And so one of the other things that is a secret, but we don't talk about it in Greenwich, is Salisbury often has a lower mill rate than we do. But because it's a small town and they don't have a lot of these really high-end sales, they don't get the publicity. Right. But clearly one of the things that people look for at the high end and is a major factor for them is taxes, both income taxes, whether in the New York, Connecticut choice, and property taxes. And Salisbury has the lowest taxes, depending on what year it is, between between Greenwich and Salisbury. Yeah. So clearly, that was one of the factors that was a deciding factor for the buyer there.
You know, as time, there's so much talk right now about commodities, Bitcoin versus gold. Where do you put your money? The stock market does well, and everything is going up. What else do you buy? We can't find any real estate. And then people hear, well, buy land, buy dirt. They don't make it anymore. And then when people say, okay, well, I'm going to go to the best towns and try to find that. No, that doesn't really exist. It's very hard for builders in these towns, the New Keens, the Darayen's, the Greenwiches, to find really good property to then build on. So when you start looking outside of Connecticut, outside of Greenwich in these Gold Coast areas and that sort of thing, you look at the town that we're talking about right now, where you can get 200 acres. I did a property tour at the Marks Castle, and it's sitting on, I think, 72 acres or 75 acres. That castle's on the market for $35 million. The video for the property tour is coming out. Well, we have fun with the video, right? The house is ridiculously unique. And the Marks family is an iconic family in the United States. But there's abundance of land. And I think if people have the ability to move their families to different locations and are willing to look outside, there's some value there. I mean, look, $7.4 million, right, for a house that's 13,000 square feet. Like, okay, it's built in 1992. But you're trying to compute that, but 200 acres, now you can start making some sense of some value there.
Well, and the other thing is the trends are going to help these.
Yep.
One of the things that I see people talking about is if you're working from home, you can literally work anywhere you want.
Right.
And I've actually been talking to a fellow in the Caribbean about a development that he's going to use for work from home people who want to spend the winter in the Caribbean.
Right.
On kind of a home condo business timeshare type thing.
Right.
But one of the things that will benefit this area, and you can see it when you look at at where the total sales are. There's an article in the Greenwich Times or Hearst Media, Stanford and Hartford Courant picked it up, that shows Greenwich has the biggest jump in sales. And the reason that is because we're close to New York City. So this whole work from home thing won't get resolved for 3 to 5 years. No. But it's a once-in-a-century change, and people are going to want to be able to get into their offices, whether it's once a month, once a week. But that what that does is it cuts your commuting time by 60, 70, 80%, maybe 100% if you never go in, and you can live in the Caribbean. But lots of people are going to need to get in, and so if it's once a month, maybe it's Litchfield County and Salisbury or Madison, where we're also seeing a big jump up in sales. But if it's once a week, you're going to be looking in Fairfield County. But the advantages that, say, Scarsdale and Larchmont had are going to diminish, particularly when you look at their property taxes that are triple I's. Right. If you're only going in once a week.
Nothing wrong with Larchmont and Scarsdale and everything like that, but
great cities, love them. You better have a good checkbook or a good salary because you're going to be paying a lot of property taxes every year.
And if you can just, it's a 15-minute longer commute, maybe up to Greenwich, and you look what you get. Look how much is available to you if you can find a property to purchase there. I would hold tight.
Yeah, or Fairfield,
you can if you can go that high, sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it once a week.
Yeah.
And instead of a 32-minute commute, you have a 45-minute commute or a 52-minute commute for much lower property taxes and a slightly lower income tax. That starts to look very doable, and we're certainly seeing that in the way the sales are reflected.
I think if there's one thing that hits home for everybody, it's trying to avoid having to pay these super high property taxes that just keep feeling like they're always going up. So.
I had a friend in Rye who called it the mortgage that never goes down. In fact, his property taxes were more than his mortgage payment.
There you go. And that's never good. That's not a good thing. So let's go on.
Particularly if you know they're not going down.
That's right, ever. We did the highest sale prices. Let's talk about the lowest sale prices. And this is interesting because the first one here that you have on the lowest of the low ones, I've actually done the same exact thing in the same exact complex. Let's talk about that. The Severn River Road. Boat slip.
So notice how this one goes down? Anyway, we'll celebrate the lowest because these are people who were able to move into Greenwich with the first 1 hour being a $59,000 sale. Now, people say you don't get much for $59,000, and in this case, what you get is a boat slip. It's at 7 River Road, slip 7C, sold for $59,000. It was listed on the Greenwich MLS, as I said, the lowest sale of the year. The problem is you're not allowed to live on your boat like you are in Sausalito, California, and some other places. So it's not really a house. For houses, for single-family homes, the lowest sales price for the year was 15 Highland Place in Pemberwick at $450,000. It was our only sale of the entire year for less than $500,000. The next lowest sale was 196 Byram Road at $500,000, which was 11% higher. And then we had a handful of sales below $600,000. Unfortunately, what's happened is that end has appreciated enough, and while we get really excited about these really high sales, one of the things people are doing is investors are buying these lower houses, or the biggest return you could have gotten over the last 3 years in Greenwich on a percentage basis was in Byram and Pemberwick.
Yep.
People talk about the waterfront. People talk about other things, but for house, the place to put your money would have been in the lower priced area, because we have a triangle of buyers, and the lower you go on that triangle, the wider and the higher the number of buyers that you have. So that you have a lot more competition, and those are the ones that particularly appreciated. You can see that if you look at our average sale for all of 2021, that came in at $3,009,000, which was up 27% over 2019. Our last pre-COVID year. If you look at the median sales, which is much more representative, because we did have that big jump in high-end sales this year.
Right.
Our median was $2.3 million, but that was up 23% over 2019. So even when you take out the very high houses, the median is only a little bit below what it was on average. And when you see that, what that tells you is that was an appreciation across the board. If you see the average sale price well above, or the appreciation well above the median sales price, that's something that's just happening at the high end. That's not the case here.
Yeah, that's interesting. The stats of 26% for the average sales and 23.3% for the median sales. You're pretty much seeing the same statistics nationally. And I bet you if you take this statistic and you broaden this out over, excluding some super specific markets, like let's exclude like Florida, let's just go across the nation. I bet you this is pretty much the same average that you're going to find of appreciation percentage right around that for everything. I think that's pretty telling. That all the different people that I speak to from across the country are seeing the same exact thing happen. Everybody's talking about this low inventory. So that is appreciation's about the same. As far as the other stuff like the River Road, I've listed properties there. I've sold boat slips there. That area right in Costa.
I've never sold a boat slip there. I've sold a couple of condos there and rented a couple.
Yes, I listed and sold some condos. I had some boat slips that we sold. And people love that Coscob River Road right on the water. There's a water club right there.
It actually is our best waterfront deal.
I agree.
There aren't many places where you can get a direct water view. And the nice thing is you've got the Greenwich Boat Club, and the American Rowing Club, and so you look out and here are these sculls going up and down the river, whether 2, 4, 8-man sculls. It's very scenic. And
as a commuter, it's not too bad to get back up on 95 or to go wherever it is you have to go. So it's a pretty nice location. For a long time, Coscob, Riverside, Old Greenwich, and Coscob had a lot of the people who are looking for entry-level homes, condos, something smaller, and with the water access. Pemberwick and Byram Road, those two properties at the 450 and 500, I'm not surprised. Pre-COVID, those were areas where the level of entry was, if you needed a house and you're trying to find a house in Greenwich under $1 million, you would have to kind of look for those areas because it was impossible to really find that in backcountry or something in South Parkway and in the hot markets of Riverside, Old Greenwich, Coscop. So you'd have to look in these areas. But now with these prices coming up, when people come to me and they look anywhere for, it doesn't matter. Just give me a house, single family under $1 million. It's becoming really, really difficult anywhere to find anything that's not an absolute explosion or a teardown or some issue like that. So
Right.
these stats are awesome and very telling of where we're kind of going. Let's go into house size. We have a good amount
Yeah.
of stuff
So
to do here.
let's actually start with the smallest houses.
Okay.
Since we've been talking about Byram and Pemberwick.
Yep.
And so we had a 760 square foot house sale, went for about $700,000, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and also in the Pemberwick area. So the idea that everything in Greenwich is big isn't true. Greenwich is really more like a small city. We've got a bunch of different neighborhoods. As you can see, our prices range literally 100-fold. They go from 500,000 to 50 million. I don't know of any other town that can say that.
That's a big range.
And that's not even counting the condos and the boat slips.
Right. Look at what we have. You have the downtown, you have the backcountry, you have land, you have your developments, you have.
You've got Old Greenwich, you've got Riverside, you've got Byram, you've got Pemberwick, you got Coscob, you got Banksville. All of those neighborhoods have their own character.
But if you think about it,
and we have very strong supporters in all of them. There are people who love all of those neighborhoods.
if you think about it too, if you go up the Gold Coast, right, and you start at Greenwich and you work from Stamford, then to Darien, and you know, go to Norwalk, New Canaan, into Wilton's, Reading, Ridgefields, Westports, Fairfields, everything. Greenwich is the biggest. Greenwich is probably one of the biggest as far as residential real estate and size, and then has the most features of lifestyle and different property types and locations and different things you can do within the town. So I'm not shocked by it, but that's why it's priced the way it is.
When you say Greenwich is the biggest, it's actually the biggest in a couple of ways. Geographically, it's the second smallest of all of the Fairfield towns. I think there are 16 or 17 of them. And there's only one town that has more area. So the nice thing is we got enough room for the 4-acre and the 2-acre zones. Plus we have rooms for high density multifamily development along the Post Road.
Yep.
We also have a huge geographic advantage in that we're the first town in Connecticut. So for the last 100 years, people who, for whatever reason, would prefer their home not be in New York or City or New York State,
Yep.
in Westchester, they get over the border and they plop down in Greenwich.
Right.
If you look at our sales map for this year, you'll see that there is a line of sales along our northern border and then along our western border with New York State. And those are a lot of New Yorkers who literally just moved over the line.
Right.
In King Street, for example, one side is in New York, one side is in Connecticut. I would not be surprised if there weren't people living in Connecticut now who can see their old house from where they were.
Yeah.
So the low property taxes and the fact that you're saving mileage for traveling to New York City, and also you're not going that much further away from your relatives. For some people with older relatives that may need regular care, being 5 or 10 minutes away is a big difference over being 15, 20 minutes away.
Got it.
If you've got to go there, every day, multiple times a day.
Gotcha. Absolutely. All right, let's keep going. So we did the smallest. Do you want to do the biggest?
Yeah, let's do. So our biggest sale was up in the very northeast corner, Cherry Blossom Lane, 16,802 square feet. It sold for $7.5 million, which works out to $446 a square foot, which is nowhere near our highest price per square foot.
Right.
Because when you take that many square feet and divide it by that number of dollars, you come out with actually a below average number of dollars per square foot. It was followed up by 857 Lake Avenue at almost the same size. It is 27 square feet smaller at 16,775 square feet. That one is a little closer to town. Cherry Blossom is the very northeast corner, bumps up almost to Banksville.
Right.
And Lake Avenue came in at $9.7 million, or $578 a square feet. That's $130 per square foot more. You still get a significant discount for being further away from downtown Greenwich. Having said that, you've got Banksville, and for us folks that love backcountry, where I live, we spend a fair amount of time in Armonk and also Bedford. If you want to see movie stars, the Bedford Playhouse, I've seen more movie stars in line at the Bedford Playhouse than I've seen at the Greenwich movie theater. Sean Connery, Glenn Close, Michael Douglas, Emma Stone. There's just a lot of media people who live up that way who love that little community playhouse.
There you go. There you know, guys. Hang out at the Playhouse at Bedford. Catch your movie stars.
Definitely.
Let's go on and
so
talk.
Townwide, our median square feet was 3,859 square feet, which shows you, given our highest were 16,000, that the heart of our market is really very much of a 4-bedroom, 3-bath type house that sits on half an acre or 1 acre.
Right.
The one thing I will note is that our median size house is up 190 square feet. Some of that is, as I said, because we have a lot of really high-end houses that have brought it up, that have sold disproportionately.
Right.
But most of that are people upsizing in town. And the nice thing is that's a zero-sum game, and that's where our inventory is coming from now, is people who are looking for bigger houses. 191 square feet is a big office or a nice-sized bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's what people are looking for, is they're frequently moving up just to get more space because they're spending more time at home.
Right. Let's go from size to, let's talk about land.
Yeah. So our biggest sale of the year, which I knew fairly well, was northwest of where I live. 39 Pearson Road was 36.4 acres, 9,000 square feet. It had a very cool older house on it, plus 2 houses for a guest house and a staff house. That went for $9 million, or only $247,000 an acre. And one of the reasons it went that low is that's actually more of a property that's being held for open space. It was bought by one of the neighbors, and he just didn't want anybody building on the 36 acres next to him. So he's got a really nice backyard. The property, in fact, there's a picture of this property at the Round Hill Club. It's got a road going down the middle of it with gigantic trees that are 100-year oak trees on each side. It's probably one of the most beautiful drives through a property of anywhere in Greenwich that's not right on Long Island Sound. The number 2 sale was also a Compass sale, and it epitomizes the difference. It's less than 1/10 the size, but it sold for almost the same price, $8.875 million, 31 Vista Drive. That was another Bill Andrus sale. As you know, he had the number 5 sale in town, and he has the number 2 land sale in town. Both of them in, and this is the one where I'm going to argue with you about Bellhaven. There are 2 other private associations that are kind of inside Greenwich. We have Mead Point and the Indian Harbor Association, and both of those are quiet money. They don't have clubhouses. They don't have people driving down to see the Christmas tree ornaments like we used to at Paul Tudor Jones's house at in Bellhaven. But they do have some absolutely gorgeous waterfront property. My brother sold one of the properties there at Mead Point, which was the highest land sale, actually the highest sale for the entire year, about 5 years ago. But yeah, those 2 associations don't get the attention that they deserve, and the people who live there are very happy about that.
Yes.
It's where the quiet money lives, and it also tends to be a little older because you don't have the sporting activity. But it's a great piece of property.
I completely agree with you, and the only exception to the Bellhaven was going to be that area, Vista Drive, that Indian Harbor, that area is very exclusive. And
right.
if you were to do
gated communities, 24-hour security.
Yes, you go do some research as to who lived there and who has lived there, and you will find some pretty exclusive company. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So let's talk about the small ones.
Yes.
So once again, we want to celebrate those. And my brother and I used to do oil and gas deals. We bought the smallest house in Old Greenwich back in 1982. It was 0.09 acres. These 2 properties beat that by being a third smaller than 9/100ths of an acre. They're 6/100ths of an acre.
Got it.
2 Bowling Place is, as I said, 0.06 acres. That is a little side street, a block from Greenwich Avenue. And then 18 West William Street is in Byram, also 0.06 acres. The 18 West William Street in Byram sold for $750,000. As I said, we have very few listings and sales under $600,000, and this smallest lot in town went for $750,000. The one on Bowling Place went for $1,094,000, and that works out to be $18 million an acre. So there's been a push to build affordable housing close to where the businesses are and close to the train station. It is very tough to build that in central Greenwich. Now, not every, this one is obviously an exception at 18 million, but you're still talking millions and millions of dollars for an acre of land in the central Greenwich area. So, once again, we go from 0.06 acres to 36 acres, which is what, about 4,000 times bigger?
Yep, that's insane. That's crazy. Okay. I still can't get over that $18 million an acre. Let's go to days on market, fastest sales. Let's go from, let's go to your top 3 there.
Okay, so one of the interesting things that happens on a hot market is stuff that's been on for a long time sells. And we're talking stuff that has been on for a long time. So on the slowest the slowest sales, 9 Conyers Farm was on for 2,125 days, or 5.8 years. But it eventually sold for $8.8 million. Now that is the sorry about this. Oh, my bad. So that one actually got beat by another property that had been on for 6.5 years, but it had had multiple agents. All of the Conyers Farm only had one agent for almost 6 years.
That's a loyal client.
549 North Street had multiple agents over 6.5 years. And finally, and as I said, finally sold at the end of 6.5 years. The number 2 or 3 actually, if you do continuous days on market, was 280 Riversville Road, which was on for 1,082 days. Both of the top ones were high-end houses. 280 Riversville Road sold for a couple of million. So it is. You don't have to be super high to be on the market super long. Of our approximately 1,000 sales, 48 of them had been on for more than 1 year, and 11 of them had been on for more than 2 years. So that's the long time. Let's talk about the short time, because it's a hot market.
Yep.
So we had 7% of our houses sold with no days on market. Now that may sound amazing, but it's just a statistical aberration. What happens is, if you do a private sale, but you want to let other people know what it went for, you can put it on as a non-MLS sale, and it will show up as 0 days on market. So for really short days on market, 13 of our sales were on for less than 5 days.
Right.
Now, let me explain what that means when you talk about being on for less than 5 days. That means there has to be a signed contract within 5 days of the property being listed, which means that you don't get to call up inspectors, you don't get to schedule inspections. What you do is most of those are, in fact, all of them are multiple offers. So you've got a day or two for the multiple offer. Then the seller's attorney has to draft the contract. The buyers tell the buyer's attorney, look, agree to whatever he says. We just want to sign a contract. Right. And they're getting that sold in less than 5 days without an inspection, which we just didn't see before. Anything under 14 days on market is a very quick sale. And that's about average for if somebody comes in, makes an offer that day, it gets accepted the next day, they schedule inspections, they negotiate the contract, and they sign it. Yeah. So here we're doing this in less than about a third of that time.
The amount of stuff that buyers are willing to give up or let go of, or contingencies to drop, or timelines, are just... Because I also think that there was a lot of people that still had... There were so many buyers that wanted to be here or buy, and the house sale, the sellers had little contingencies on their own. We can't leave at this point. We don't know where to go. We have a short-term renter in there, whatever the issues were. So these buyers were making decisions and just, let's figure out a way to just close on this, and then we'll actually get into it later. As opposed to saying, hey, let's wait for a delayed closing where the days on market might keep going. So these are just incredible stats. These are just incredible things. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I did a sale that went over list, and we had 5 offers in 3 days. So, and what was interesting there was, actually no, we had 8 offers. 5 of them were all cash. And what happened there was, when the people will do their work after it's accepted, she came in, looked at it with her contractor, and said it wasn't for her. Meanwhile, the number 2 person had moved on, and we went to the number 3 person, who also was over list, though not quite as much over list as the first person. So one of the things I always do in these multiple offer situations, if I'm representing the seller, is tell the buyers, and in fact, that was who was calling, was a buyer who was in third place on a multiple offer deal in backcountry, that hold on, we may be back to you.
Right.
So for them, I'm going to unfortunately have to disappoint them.
That stinks, but there will be others. Sorry to hear that. Let's talk about highest and lowest sale price. I guess this is list of sale price. List of sale price, and I think we have.
No, well, actually, so this is sales price as a percentage of the original list price.
Okay.
So the question is, who paid the most over list of the stuff, kind of the stuff we were just talking about? Who really
wanted it the baddest? Who really wanted it?
Yeah, and that would be 32 Westcombe Wood in Riverside, walking distance to Riverside Elementary. Okay. Went on the market for $1.6 million. The sales contract was for $2.2 million. And it was on the market for 8 days. And that, as I said, from the time it was listed to the time there was a signed contract, was 8 days. That is by far our highest. I think our next highest is 22% over list. But when you want it, you want it. And the spousal privilege to get the house can be very heavy.
The 32 Westcombe Road, that's 138%.
Yeah, 138% over the, 138% of list price, 38% over the list. 40% of our houses this year went for list or over list price. So that was 234 sales. That went for over list price, and another 159 that went for full list price.
Which is this? I mean, this is the question, the chicken or the egg kind of thing, maybe. But when you have 40% that are going, that's almost half of all sales are going at or above list price.
Right.
And then you start to look at the increase in property, sales by, let's say, 25 to 30%. People might look at that and go, well, real estate agents were downplaying the market still, because if 40%, 50% are still giving me list to sale price ratio, list of sale prices, they could have went another 25% higher. And I wonder if the buyers would have paid another 25% more. Like that's an interesting.
Well, the nice thing in a hot market is there are lots of buyers out there.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a Seurat painting. It's pointillism. You just get a lot of little dots, and the area that those dots center around is your fair market value. Now, every once in a while, if you pay attention and watch what you're doing, you can sell something for over list. But when you've got 8 people bidding on a house, and they all come up with, and 6 of them come up with about the same price, and 1 person comes up with an extraordinary price, you've been able to sell it over list price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And
and there aren't more than a couple of dozen of those houses in Greenwich. With the amount of information out there, with the quality of our agents, with the knowledge and skills of the buyers, they're not going to overpay. Yeah. Having said that, they are going to go over list, because one of the best strategies to get the highest price in this market is that triangle, as I said. Correct. You want to move as far down that triangle on the list price to widen the number of buyers.
Right.
And there's the number of people who will see it.
And there's
the lower you list, the higher the sale price.
For sure. There's so much data and so many systems and tools that you can use. If you know how to read the data and you know what you're talking about, coming up with a proper list price in this market is not super difficult. There's been 1,000 sales. We have a ton of data points to pick from and choose from, different locations, property styles, those different stuff. So, 100% I agree with you. Do we have time to talk about inventory?
Yeah, inventory, and unfortunately, I don't have anything that makes a bad sound, but inventory gets a record for making the real estate market really difficult. We already talked about the huge drop off in sales in the second half of the year.
Right.
And right now we have 171 single family home listings on the market. Even as recently as, last week we had 182, and in December of 2091, we had 432 listings. So it's just a ridiculously low figure. The lowest figure pre-pandemic we ever had in Greenwich was in December of 2000. We had 291 listings. So now we're looking at being under by 120 listings. What our all-time previous low was, and we're going lower every day. We should get a bunch of new listings on at the beginning of the year, but we're not going to be anywhere near a normal number of listings for months.
Look, you're going to have all these withdrawn, these people who are taking their stuff off to take a little break for the holidays or getting prepared. They're not thinking about, well, I want to make sure I shoot the house when it has the pool open, which you will. You're always going to get the spring boom of people who want to list and sell their house. But you're going to get a massive amount of property go on in January, but it's still not going to be anywhere near what's needed for there to be enough amicable.
Well, from your lips to God's ear, I'm concerned it won't be a massive amount of listings. We will get a distinct jump up.
Massive is
there are a lot of people who don't want to interrupt Christmas.
No, not a massive. You'll have an increase, but not a massive one. And
it'll be an increase, and I hope it's bigger than we expect because we'll be able to sell all of those.
Oh, for sure.
It's not often that I strongly recommend to people that they list their houses in January, but this is that year.
Yeah, this is the earliest spring we've ever had. And as far as, what could be coming out there, I think at this point, the idea that all of a sudden you're going to get this influx of new builds is just not realistic. There's not enough builders who have. I talk to builders and developers all the time. They're like, find me something, find it, I'll build it.
And the other problem is you've got great shortages of all sorts of stuff, but the biggest shortage you have is land and time. I did an article in the Greenwich Sentinel where I write my column a couple of years ago, and we had the average time from a builder buying a house, a land, and closing on it, and actually making the sale was 21 months. So if a builder were to buy a property right now, he's not looking, that house won't be on the market until 2023, maybe 2024. Yeah. So we're not going to build our way out of this shortage.
And then you're going to, I think the market will do well, but if there's a lot of gambling that's going to go on that, hey, I'll put this money into a build that's going to be done 2 years from now, or I'll purchase a spec or a custom that's going to be done 2 years from now. I do think we'll be fine 2 years from now, but.
Oh, I do too.
There's, there you go. Now you're seeing some gamble being put out there that markets will be okay, which I'm sure it will be. Right. But the more that happens, the more that the everyday consumer gets into that game as well. You're going to see everyday people who just want to invest money who are going to try to do these houses too, anywhere they can find now. Overpay for something to buy, to then overpay for the build, to overpay, and then try to put it on for these prices. So
right. Yeah. So and there are two other things that are driving this market, and you can see it in the last couple of weeks. One, the Fed has clearly announced they're going to be raising interest rates,
right? And
we've seen the number of contingent contracts jump, and that's the smart money who's buying before the interest rates go up. Right. And then the other thing that's driving the market is just that whole work from home thing. Right. There are just a lot more people who are realizing that their companies are not going to insist that they be in the office 9 to 5. And the companies with the labor shortages realize that they can't force their people to be in 9 to 5, or they're going to take a job with another company.
Right, exactly. So we have talked a lot for this past hour.
Much longer than I expected.
Yeah, this is an hour. We're so excited to be like, get in, hype this up, have these things. Everybody's going to be excited about the highest and lowest prices. But there's a lot of detail. I mean, this is what we do day in and day out. Mark, you are the best at what you do, which is accumulating this data, making sense of it, being able to communicate it. And that's all we wanted to be able to do today. Celebrate the people and the buyers and sellers who've been able to find the property, give encouragement to people who have not yet, being able to supply all this information. Congratulations to all the real estate agents who have worked on the transactions, and keep up the hard work if you're still working on them. Mark, the 2022 year, I want to get your just general prediction of where we're going, because as real estate agents, the more I talk to people, they're like, yeah, real estate's great. And the top brokers are being able to accumulate a lot of the listings and being able to sell them relatively quickly when they work. But for the general amount of real estate agents, and there's a boom in real estate right now, so everybody's getting their license, it's not as easy for them because you have no inventory, so people don't understand.
Right.
This isn't the way it always is. The 2022 year going forward, what's your sense? We keep going and this actually gets better or worse depending on where we look at it, staying the same, or do you think we plateau and then go down a little bit or a lot?
What we've got are about 4 factors that are pushing each other each way. Interest rates going up will tend to slow sales. Having said that, they generally go up in inflationary periods like we have now, which pushes people to move money out of devaluing cash into hard assets. So in our rising interest rates periods, we haven't seen declining sales. The whole work from home thing, there are 22 million people in the New York metropolitan area. Fairfield County is a very small part of that, and we're going to see continuing people moving into our market. The problem is our shadow inventory of people who are waiting to sell after the recession is gone. If we see a drop, and one of the things that we should mention quickly is inventory is not the issue. We have the Herbie the Love Bug market, as I call it. It doesn't have a lot of inventory. It's a small little car, but it goes really fast. And provided you keep putting gas in it with new listings, the inventory never goes up. But the sales, as I said, this year we had a record sales. That could happen again next year. But the question is, are we going to have enough people who are upsizing and enough people who have decided that they weren't planning on moving to Florida the 2 previous years, but now they are, right, who will put their houses on the market? So my guess is we're going to be looking at lower sales next year, but it's going to be inventory constrained. The biggest issue is the black swan events. Just what we don't know is going to happen. Right. If anybody had told us in 2019 that we were going to have 863 sales in Greenwich in 2020, I would have given you 100 to 1 odds on that. That just wasn't going to happen. But the pandemic, and now work from home, and now increasing interest rates, and the highest inflation we've seen in 40 years. We're just in a bunch of extraordinary circumstances, making predictions really difficult.
What's the long-term back end of this? Where does this go long-term?
The long-term, 3 to 5 years out, is, as I said, I think it'll take that long before the whole work from home thing pretty much plays out, which means that the areas further from town, the areas that are good for families and people who like outdoors and stuff like that, will do well. Once the pandemic goes away, the people who like all the activities and the things like that in New York City will come back. But And I actually think one of the things you're going to see is more people retiring to New York City. We've always had, I just had a client whose wife was in the fashion industry, and she really missed all the activity in New York City. So they're moving back to New York City now that he's retired. So I think you're going to see more of that. You also are going to see more of the trend of moving to warmer weather places, just as we've had for the last 20 or 30 years. But you're going to see the fullbacks and the halfbacks. I was talking to an agent in Charlotte, South Carolina, and she said there are a lot of people who moved down to Florida, realize just how freaking hot it is in the summer, and haven't come all the way back to the Northeast, but have moved back to Charlotte. So they have people moving down from the Northeast, but also people moving to the Northeast and then back up to the Carolinas. And you get some seasonal activity there. But yeah, the long-term activity I think really will be driven by this whole work from home thing, because it's the biggest change we've had in our work-home balance in a century.
Yeah, I think to the layman, the regular person who's not in this full time, who just has another career, just another job, and doesn't do this, they're really thinking about it in two aspects: the price of these houses, and is there even inventory for me to even look at? So right now there's nothing for me to even look at, and the prices are all the way up here. So people are trying to figure out, well, does the opposite side of this, is there something that's going to happen that's going to make it so that these prices either come down or stay the same? And am I going to have the availability down the road to actually find something that I like? I think that the reason why I don't think we're going to have a huge drop anywhere. I think it'll be a kind of coming to a median coming back to the median line over the last 100 years, is because it is controlled, a lot of this, by interest rates. That way, as that goes up, it'll be tinkered with at a slow percentage to turn the ship in a way where the prices kind of stay or even plateau out a little bit and just kind of hold there for a while. And less buyers will want to buy. Inventory will start to gather up a little bit more, and then you'll go back to this leveling out over the next couple of years, where everything will kind of be within kind of a reset from even prior to 08. We're going to probably end up in somewhere in that like 06, 07 trajectory number, where over the last 10 years, because it is a little bit controlled now. Yeah. Obviously,
I think that's a very plausible and likely scenario. The one thing to watch is our markets, whether they be stock markets or real estate markets, are driven by emotion. And once the emotional attitude changes, markets can change in weeks, or in real estate in a quarter. So right now, if the sentiment were to change, we could have a relatively quick correction. The problem is, for any buyer, anybody who's looking for that's a low probability scenario. And I know, there's a buyer I know. I didn't represent him, but I was talking to his agent. He ended up paying $150,000 more than he planned to pay, because he was going to wait for prices to come down this year after last year. Yeah. And instead they went up, and he had to move. It really would have made a lot more sense for him to have bought in 2020.
It's amazing when I talk to finance guys, money guys, hedge fund guys, Wall Street guys, girls, doesn't have to be guys. They always have this idea in their mind of the correction, the crash, the change, the switch. I'll wait. Right. And I always say, like, I think you're 100% kind of right, because you guys are pros in this, but I do think you're talking about speedboats. We're a cruise ship. This is I don't, other than black swan events, I don't see because so much of what we have seen is countrywide, nationwide, worldwide. I don't know if you will have a thing that all of a sudden changes in a quarter, unless it's completely unpredicted. And yes, these things happen, but I mean, what is that thing? Barring, God forbid, wars, plagues, things, other these things, what's changing this? over the next amount of time in that speed. I think the only thing is
Yes.
the interest rates. That's all your buyers and sellers, Mark. You have to make deals happen. Let's do a live deal on the phone.
Actually, that would be fun. You represent the buyer, I'll represent the seller. We'll negotiate it online.
Perfect. It'll be vicious.
Okay.
Well, so I'll let you go because I know you got to take that and you got work to do. We had a long.
It's busy.
We are about 100, it would be an hour and 20 minutes almost into this, and I want to kind of wrap up here. For everybody who is watching and listening, it is really important that you do kind of understand what's going on in real estate, and you are watching what's happening in your backyard and with your property value, so you don't miss anything. And it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to reach out. One of the best places that you can check on what's happening in the market is sometimes just to check your email and get onto an email list. Also check out Mark's places where he's putting a lot of his information.
You can check out GreenwichStreets.com, and
Yes.
I update that monthly.
Yes, GreenwichStreets.com. We're going to try to get some of this content onto his platforms there as well, and vice versa. There's a lot of really great Compass brokers out there as well, and just brokers in general who will be open and willing to give you information. But you got two of the best here. So if you're watching this and you just want the information, come to one of us. Mark, once again, can you just let people know where they can find you and more information?
Sure. So you can email me at mark.pruner@compass.com. The website is greenwichstreets.com. And my phone number is 203-969-7900. If you want to text, it's 203-817-2871. Thanks.
Mark, thank you again so much for being on. I am so excited for the next one that we're going to do to kind of talk a little bit as we wrap up Q1 of 2022. Oh my gosh.
That's going to be amazing.
I can't,
Yeah.
It's going to be incredible to see where this happens and if our predictions come true. But Mark, thank you again, once again, for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, Leaders of Lifestyle Agent podcast, thank you so much for being with us. Until next time, take care.